Get your hands where I can see them, or I swear to God, I will drag you through that window." Officer Knox Reyes screamed, his hand hovering over his holster, eyes wild with a manufactured rage. "Please, my daughter is sick. I haven't done anything," Hope West cried, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, the rain masking the tears streaming down her face. "I don't care about your kid. Step out, now!" The glass shattered. The scream followed. Hope didn't know it yet, but Knox Reyes had just made the last mistake of his career. He thought she was helpless. He didn't know who picked up the phone when she called for help. The rain in Seattle didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. It was a heavy, relentless downpour that drummed against the roof of Hope West's battered 2011 Honda Civic like 1,000 tiny hammers, matching the pounding headache behind her eyes. The dashboard clock read 11:43 p.m. Hope adjusted the rearview mirror, her eyes flicking to the back seat. Trista, her 7-year-old daughter, was curled into a ball against the door, clutching her worn-out stuffed rabbit, Mr. Buns. The child's breathing was audible even over the rain, a wet, wheezing rasp that made Hope's heart constrict with every inhalation. "Mama," Trista's voice was small, fragile. "My chest hurts." "I know, baby. I know," Hope said, forcing her voice to remain steady, masking the terror clawing at her throat. "We're almost to the 24-hour pharmacy. The doctor called the prescription in. You're going to breathe easy in 10 minutes, I promise." Hope gripped the steering wheel tighter. She was exhausted. She had just finished a 12-hour shift at St. Jude's Hospital, where she worked as a CNA. She spent her days wiping bodies, changing sheets, and being yelled at by grieving families and stressed doctors, all to come home to an eviction notice taped to her apartment door and a daughter with severe asthma who needed a nebulizer treatment she couldn't afford to skip. The streetlights of the industrial district blurred into streaks of orange and white on the wet asphalt. Hope was careful. She was always careful. As a black woman driving an older car in a gentrifying neighborhood late at night, she knew the unspoken rules. Keep your speed exactly at the limit. Use your blinker 3 seconds early. Keep your hands at 10 and 2. Don't give them a reason. But tonight, fate and the deteriorating infrastructure of the city conspired against her. She hit the pothole before she saw it. It was a crater, hidden beneath a deceptively shallow puddle. The car slammed down hard, a sickening thud crunch echoing through the chassis. The Civic shuddered, and the left tail light flickered out. Hope didn't know the light was out, but she felt the alignment pull hard to the left. "It's okay, Trista. Just a bump," Hope soothed, though her own pulse was racing. "Just a bump." 2 blocks later, the darkness behind her was pierced by the aggressive strobe of red and blue lights. Hope's stomach dropped through the floorboards. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no, not tonight. Please, God, not tonight." She eased her foot off the gas, signaled, and pulled over to the curb, right beneath the sputtering glow of a street lamp. She put the car in park, turned on the dome light, rule number 1, let them see inside, and rolled down her window despite the freezing rain blowing in. "Mama, are we in trouble?" Trista sat up, her eyes wide with fear. The wheeze in her chest grew louder as her anxiety spiked. "No, baby. Just stay calm. Keep your hands on your knees, okay? Like we practiced." Hope placed her hands on the top of the steering wheel, fingers spread. She took a deep breath, trying to slow her heart rate. She was a law-abiding citizen. She was a mother. She was a nurse. She had insurance. She had done nothing wrong. In the side mirror, she saw the patrol car door open. A figure stepped out, silhouette imposing against the harsh headlights. He didn't hurry. He adjusted his belt, a gesture of casual dominance, and began the slow, deliberate walk toward her car. Hope didn't know Officer Knox Reyes, but she knew his type. She had seen him in the emergency room, bringing in suspects with accidental bruises. She had seen him in the news, always standing in the background of press conferences, looking bored while the chief apologized for another incident. He was a man who wore his badge not as a shield, but as a crown. Reyes reached the window. He didn't lean down initially. He just stood there, letting the rain soak into Hope's upholstery, letting the silence stretch until it was suffocating. "License and registration," he said finally. His voice wasn't loud. It was flat, bored, and dripping with contempt. "Good evening, officer," Hope said, her voice trembling slightly despite her best efforts. "My daughter is having an asthma attack. We are on our way to the pharmacy. My license is in my purse on the passenger seat. May I reach for it?" Reyes ignored the information about Trista. He leaned down, his aviator sunglasses reflecting the dome light, hiding his eyes. He chewed on a piece of gum with an open mouth, a rhythmic, irritating sound. "I asked for your license and registration. I didn't ask for your life story." "I am asking for permission to move my hands, officer," Hope repeated, looking straight ahead. "I don't want to startle you." Reyes scoffed, a short, sharp sound. "You think you startle me? Hurry up." Hope moved slowly. She reached over, grabbed her purse, and extracted the wallet. Her hands shook as she handed over the plastic card. Reyes snatched it. He looked at it, then at her, then into the back seat. His flashlight beam cut through the dark, blinding Trista. "Hey!" Trista yelped, covering her eyes. She started coughing, a dry, hacking sound that rattled her small frame. "Officer, please," Hope pleaded, turning to look at her daughter. "She can't breathe. Can you just write the ticket so we can go?" "It was just a pothole. I think my alignment." "Get out of the car," Reyes interrupted. The world stopped. The rain seemed to freeze in the air. "What?" Hope whispered. "I said, step out of the vehicle. Now." "Why? What have I done?" "I just want to get my daughter her medicine." Reyes took a step back, his hand dropping to the baton on his belt. "I smell marijuana. Step out of the vehicle, or I will remove you from the vehicle." "That is a lie." Hope's voice rose, desperation cracking her calm facade. "I am a nurse. I don't smoke. There is no smell." "Are you resisting?" Reyes shouted, his boredom vanishing, replaced by the predator's excitement of the chase. Hope looked at Trista. The girl was hyperventilating now, the asthma attack worsening with the panic. If Hope got arrested, Trista would go into the system. She would be alone. She might die. "No," Hope said, tears spilling over. "I'm getting out." She unbuckled her seatbelt. As she opened the door, she looked back at Trista. "It's okay, T. Mama's right here. Just breathe." Hope stepped into the rain. She was 5'4", wearing scrubs with little teddy bears on them. She looked nothing like a threat. But as she stood up facing Knox Reyes, she felt the heavy, suffocating blanket of injustice settle over her shoulders. From the patrol car, a second figure emerged, Officer Kenneth York. He was younger, rookie-faced, looking uncomfortable in the rain. He walked up to the passenger side, looking at Trista, then at Reyes. "Knox," York started, his voice hesitant. "The kid looks pretty bad. Maybe we just—" "Shut up, York," Knox snapped without looking back. "Check the car. I'm conducting a field sobriety test." Hope stood in the rain, shivering, water soaking through her scrubs to her skin. She looked at Knox Reyes, and for the first time, she saw the glint in his eyes behind the shades. It wasn't duty. It was malice. The sidewalk was slick, reflecting the neon sign of a closed liquor store nearby. Hope stood with her arms wrapped around herself, not just from the cold, but from a primal need to hold herself together. "Spread your feet, hands on the hood," Knox commanded. "Officer, this is insane," Hope said, her voice shaking. "You can test me. Breathalyzer, swab, whatever. But please, let the other officer take my daughter to the pharmacy. She needs albuterol, now." Knox shoved her shoulder hard. Hope stumbled, her hips slamming into the metal of her own car. "Do not tell me how to do my job. Hands on the hood!" Hope slapped her hands onto the wet metal. The cold seeped into her palms. She could hear Trista crying inside the car, a muffled, wheezing sob that tore at Hope's soul. Knox began to pat her down. It was aggressive, invasive. His hands lingered too long near her waist, his touch rough and demeaning. He checked her pockets, pulling out a crumpled tissue and a chapstick. He threw them into a puddle. "York, what do you have?" Knox yelled over the roof of the car. Officer York was in the passenger seat. He had opened the glove box. He looked at the medical papers, the unfinished homework, the scattering of crayons. He looked at the terrified little girl clutching a stuffed rabbit. "It's clean, Knox," York said, stepping out. "Just kid stuff and medical records. She's telling the truth. The girl has severe asthma." Knox's jaw tightened. He hated being wrong. More than that, he hated being questioned by a rookie in front of a suspect he had already decided was guilty. He walked around to the passenger side, pushing York out of the way. "You don't know where to look," Knox sneered. He leaned into the car. Hope watched. Her head turned to the side, her cheek pressed against the wet hood. "Don't scare her," she begged. "Please." Knox ignored her. He rummaged under the seat. He pulled up the floor mats. Then his hand went to his own tactical vest pocket. It was a subtle movement, a sleight of hand practiced over years of corruption. His hand dipped into his pocket and then slid under the passenger seat. A moment later, he pulled his hand back out, holding a clear plastic baggie filled with a white powdery substance. "Well, well, well," Knox said, holding the baggie up to the streetlight. "Clean, huh, York? What's this?" Hope's blood ran cold. The world tilted on its axis. "That's not mine," she gasped. "That's not mine. You put that there." York stared at the baggie. He looked at Knox, his eyes wide. He had seen the motion. He knew exactly what had just happened. The powder was too white, the bag too crisp. "Knox," York whispered. "Man, don't do this." "Bag it," Knox ordered, his voice made of iron. "Possession with intent to distribute. Probably fentanyl. That explains the erratic driving." "I hit a pothole!" Hope screamed, pushing herself off the car. "You planted that! I saw you!" Knox spun around, grabbing Hope by the wrist and twisting her arm behind her back with excessive force. Hope cried out in pain as her shoulder joint groaned. "Resisting arrest! Assaulting an officer!" Knox bellowed, reciting the script he had written in his head. "Mama!" Trista screamed from the car, scrabbling at the window. "Mama!" Knox kicked Hope's legs apart and slammed the handcuffs onto her wrists. The metal bit into her skin, clicking shut with a sound of finality. "You are making a mistake," Hope hissed, her face pressed against the trunk now. The fear was transmuting into a cold, hard anger. "You have no idea what you are doing." "I'm taking a junkie off the streets," Knox laughed. He hauled her up and dragged her toward the patrol car. "My daughter!" Hope fought against his grip. "What about my daughter?" "CPS is on the way," Knox said casually. "She'll go into the system until you post bail. If you post bail. She needs medicine. She will die without it." "Not my problem anymore. She's ward of the state now." Knox shoved Hope into the back of the cruiser. The hard plastic seat smelled of vomit and stale disinfectant. As the door slammed shut, separating her from the outside world, Hope watched through the wire mesh. She saw York standing in the rain, looking at the baggie in his hand, looking at Trista. He looked sick, but he didn't speak. He walked back to the cruiser and got in the driver's seat. "Call it in, York," Knox said, settling into the passenger seat and adjusting the air conditioning vent. "Transporting one female. Requesting towing and CPS for the minor." York hesitated. His hand hovered over the radio. "Do it!" Knox barked. York keyed the mic. "Dispatch, this is Unit 4 Alpha. We have one in custody." As the car pulled away, Hope twisted her body to look out the back window. The last thing she saw was her Honda Civic, dark and lonely in the rain, with a small, terrified face pressed against the glass, watching her mother disappear into the night. Hope didn't scream anymore. She didn't cry. She sat in the darkness of the police car, the handcuffs cutting into her wrists, and she closed her eyes. She needed to focus. She needed to survive the next hour, because once she got to the station, she had one phone call, and she wasn't calling a lawyer. The holding cell at the 12th precinct was a concrete box painted a color that could only be described as despair gray. It smelled of urine and old bleach. The fluorescent light overhead buzzed with the frantic energy of a trapped fly. Hope sat on the metal bench, her knees pulled to her chest. They had taken her shoelaces. They had taken her belt. They had taken her dignity. But they hadn't taken her memory. She checked the mental clock in her head. It had been 40 minutes since they brought her in. 40 minutes since Trista was taken by a frantic, overworked social worker who promised to get her an inhaler as soon as we processed the paperwork. Hope prayed to every god she knew that the woman had kept her word. The heavy steel door clanked open. Knox Reyes walked in, holding a clipboard. He looked fresh, energized by the arrest. He had a styrofoam cup of coffee in one hand. "Comfortable, Ms. West?" he asked, leaning against the doorframe. Hope looked up slowly. "Where is my daughter?" "She's safe. Foster care usually finds a bed within 24 hours. Until then, she's at the crisis center. They have vending machines." Hope's jaw tightened. "She is 7 years old. She has a respiratory condition." "Maybe you should have thought about that before you started pushing drugs," Knox said, taking a sip of coffee. "We ran your prints. No priors. Clean record. Which means you're either new at this or really good at hiding it. I'm betting on the latter." "I want my phone call," Hope said quietly. Knox laughed. "Sure. You want to call a public defender? Or maybe your dealer to come bail you out?" "I want my phone call. It is my right." Knox rolled his eyes. He signaled to the guard outside. "Bring the phone. Let her make her call. I want to hear who she cries to." The guard, a burly man who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else, wheeled a cart with an old, battered landline phone to the cell door. He passed the receiver through the food slot. Hope took the receiver. Her hands were steady now. The shaking had stopped. This was the eye of the storm. She didn't dial a local number. She didn't dial a lawyer. She dialed a number she had memorized 15 years ago. A number that didn't technically exist in any phone book. It rang once, twice. On the third ring, the line clicked open. There was no greeting, just the silence of a line that was encrypted and waiting. "Code black," Hope said. Her voice was clear, devoid of emotion. "Location, Seattle, 12th Precinct, badge number." She looked at Knox, who was smirking at her. She read the silver numbers on his chest. 8429, Officer Knox Reyes. Knox frowned. The smirk faltered slightly. "Who are you talking to?" Hope continued, ignoring him. "Subject, unlawful detainment, planted evidence, hostage situation involving a minor, Trista Easton, medical emergency imminent, I need extraction." She paused. From the other end of the line, a voice spoke. It was a voice like grinding gravel, a voice that sounded like it had gargled with whiskey and razor blades, but to Hope, it was the sound of salvation. "Hope?" the voice asked. The tone shifted from professional to deadly personal. "Did they touch her?" "They took her, Logan," Hope whispered, her composure cracking for a split second. "They planted drugs on me. Knox Reyes, he has her." "Is he in the room with you?" "Yes." "Put him on." Hope pulled the receiver away from her ear. She looked at Knox. "He wants to speak to you." Knox let out a bark of incredulous laughter. "Who? Your pimp?" He walked over and snatched the receiver through the slot. He put it to his ear, grinning at York, who was hovering in the hallway looking nauseous. "This is Officer Reyes. Listen here, scumbag. If you think you're coming down here to intimidate me—" Knox stopped. The color drained from his face instantly. His eyes went wide. He stood frozen, the phone pressed to his ear, listening. The voice on the other end wasn't shouting. It wasn't threatening. It was stating facts. "Officer Reyes," Logan Hendricks said, sitting in a dimly lit room in a safe house 3,000 miles away, cleaning a combat knife. "My name is Logan Hendricks. You are currently holding my sister. You have also taken my niece. I am looking at your file right now. I see your address in Bellevue. I see your wife's name is Sarah. I see you have a boat you can't afford docked at Marina Slip 42. Knox swallowed hard. "How did you... Who is this? I am the man who is going to burn your life to the ground if my niece isn't breathing clean air in the next 10 minutes, Logan said calmly. "I am airborne. I will be there in 4 hours. If Hope has a single bruise, if Trista sheds one more tear, there is no court on earth that will save you from me." The line went dead. Knox stared at the phone. The dial tone hummed in the silence. He looked at the receiver, then at Hope. Hope was sitting back on the bench, staring at him. Her eyes were hard. "Big mistake," she said softly. Knox slammed the phone down onto the cart. "York!" he yelled, his voice cracking. "Get this phone out of here!" He turned back to Hope, trying to regain his bravado, but his hands were trembling. "You think a threat from some boyfriend scares me? I'm a cop. I run this city." "He's not my boyfriend," Hope said, leaning her head back against the concrete wall. "He's my brother." "I don't care who he is," Knox shouted, too loud. "You're going to processing, and then you're going to a cell in county." He turned and stormed out of the holding area, nearly knocking over York. "Knox," York said, chasing after him. "Who was that? You look like you saw a ghost." "Just some punk," Knox muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. "Process the paperwork. Make sure the charges stick. I want her buried." But as Knox walked toward his desk, he couldn't stop his hand from reaching for his own phone. He Googled the name, Logan Hendricks. The search results loaded. Delta Force operative decorated for valor. Classified missions. Missing in action presumed. Ghost recon. And then, a news article from 5 years ago. A blurry photo of a man in full tactical gear carrying 2 wounded soldiers out of a burning building. The eyes in the photo were the same eyes Hope West had. Knox felt a distinct cold trickle of sweat slide down his spine. Hope sat in the cell, closing her eyes. She knew Logan was coming. She knew the storm was coming with him. But she also knew 4 hours was a long time. And Knox Reyes was a scared man with a badge, and scared men with power were the most dangerous kind of all. She wrapped her arms around herself and began to hum a lullaby, the same one she sang to Trista. She had to stay calm. The war had just begun. Officer Knox Reyes sat in his patrol car parked behind the precinct, the engine idling. The rain was still hammering down, washing the city in a deluge of cold indifference. But Knox was sweating. The heater was off, yet beads of perspiration gathered at his hairline, trickling down the back of his neck. He looked at his phone. The screen was cracked, a spiderweb fracture from when he'd thrown it against the dash 2 weeks ago during an argument with his wife. Now, it illuminated his face with a pale, ghostly light. He had searched for Logan Hendricks again, and again. The results were always the same, always terrifying. Joint Special Operations Command, Silver Star, Distinguished Service Cross, Specialist in Extraction and Asymmetric Warfare. "It's a bluff," Knox whispered to himself, his voice sounding hollow in the cramped cabin. "He's a brother, probably just a grunt who got lucky with a few medals. He can't touch me. I'm the law." But his hands shook as he lit a cigarette. He cracked the window, letting the smoke curl out into the rain. He needed to cover his tracks, just in case. He pulled the dashboard camera SD card from the slot. It was a violation of protocol, a firing offense, but Knox was way past protocol. He held the tiny piece of plastic between his thumb and forefinger. This was the only record of the traffic stop. This and York's body cam. "York," Knox hissed. He threw the car into drive and squealed around the corner to the employee lot. He found York's personal vehicle, a beat-up Toyota Tacoma. York was leaning against it, smoking a vape, looking like he was about to vomit. Knox slammed his door and marched over. York flinched. "Give me your camera," Knox demanded, extending a hand. I already docked it, Knox," York stammered, his eyes darting away. "It's uploading to the cloud server, procedure." Knox grabbed York by the collar of his uniform jacket, slamming him against the truck. "You idiot! I told you to wait!" "I didn't know," York cried, his hands up in surrender. "The sergeant saw me walk in. He asked for the footage for the arrest report. I couldn't just hold it." Knox released him with a shove. He raked a hand through his hair. The footage was in the system. That meant he couldn't delete it without a trail. He had to pivot. He had to make the footage look justified. "Listen to me," Knox said, his voice low and dangerous. "You saw her reach for something. You saw her erratic driving. You smelled the weed. That is what goes in the report. If you deviate 1 inch from that story, York, I will ruin you. I know about that incident at the academy. I know about your brother's little legal trouble. You want to keep your badge? You back my play." York swallowed hard. He looked terrified, trapped between his conscience and his career. "Knox, that guy on the phone?" He sounded serious. "He's 3,000 miles away," Knox shouted, losing his composure. "He's a ghost story. We are the reality. Now get inside and write the report." Knox stormed off toward the station entrance. He needed to accelerate the timeline. He needed Hope processed, charged, and transferred to county jail before sunrise. Once she was in the general population, she was just another inmate, just another statistic. And if this Logan showed up, he'd be buried in red tape. Inside the station, the atmosphere was heavy. The night shift was in full swing. Drunks were singing in the tank, phones were ringing, and the smell of stale coffee permeated everything. Knox walked past the front desk. Sergeant Miller looked up. "Reyes, that bust you brought in, the nurse?" "Yeah, drug mule," Knox said dismissively, heading for the break room. "Strange," Miller said, pausing Knox in his tracks. "We just got a call from the DA's office. They want the file flagged." Knox froze. "The DA at 1 a.m.? "Yeah. Someone woke up the assistant district attorney. Said they received a priority inquiry regarding Hope West." Miller narrowed his eyes. "You cross all your T's on this one, Knox?" "Always, Sarge," Knox lied, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. He hurried to his desk. He logged into the terminal. He needed to find out who called the DA. As he typed, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it. He shouldn't answer. He knew he shouldn't. But the fear was a physical thing now, a hook in his gut pulling him toward the inevitable. He slid the icon to answer. "Reyes." "Tick-tock, officer." Logan's voice was clearer this time, devoid of the static from the cell phone. "I'm on the ground." Knox stood up, knocking his chair over. "That's impossible. You said 4 hours." "I lied," Logan said. "I have a friend in the Air National Guard. We made good time. I'm in the city. And Knox?" "What?" Knox gripped the phone, looking around the busy station, paranoid that every shadow was an assassin. "I suggest you look out the window." Knox rushed to the window overlooking the street. The rain was blinding, but he saw it. A black SUV, completely unmarked, idling directly across the street from the precinct. It wasn't doing anything illegal. It was just sitting there, watching. "You can't threaten a police officer," Knox whispered. "I'm not threatening you," Logan replied. "I'm giving you a chance to surrender. Release her. Drop the charges. Bring my niece to the lobby. If you do that in the next 5 minutes, I walk away with just your badge. If you don't, if I don't, then I take everything." The line went dead. Knox stared at the black SUV. It didn't move. He felt the walls of the precinct closing in. He turned to look at the holding cells down the hall. He had to double down. He couldn't let a perp intimidate him. He was Knox Reyes. He was the king of the 12th precinct. He grabbed his radio. "Dispatch, we have a suspicious vehicle outside the station. Black SUV. Possible threat to officers. Send a unit to shake them down." He would arrest Logan Hendricks too. He would put the whole family in a cage. That was how you won. You crushed them. The interior of the black SUV was silent, save for the hum of high-tech equipment. It smelled of leather and gun oil. Logan Hendricks sat in the passenger seat. He wasn't wearing a military uniform. He was dressed in a charcoal tactical suit, civilian cut, but designed for movement. Under the jacket, a shoulder holster housed a custom Sig Sauer P226. But his most dangerous weapon was the tablet in his lap. Driving the car was Reed Easton. Reed wasn't just a lawyer. He was Logan's former squad leader, a man who had traded his rifle for a briefcase after a jagged piece of shrapnel took his left eye. Now he wore a glass eye and tailored Italian suits, running the most feared private security and legal firm in the Pacific Northwest. "He called it in," Reed said, glancing at the dashboard scanner. "Dispatch is sending a patrol car to check us out. 2 minutes out." "Let them come," Logan said, his eyes never leaving the tablet. He was watching a live feed. "I'm inside their system, Reed. I'm looking at the booking report. Possession with intent. Fentanyl, 50 grams. They pinned a felony trafficking charge on her." Reed gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles whitening. "That's a mandatory minimum of 10 years if it sticks." He didn't just want to arrest her, he wanted to end her life. "Trista?" Logan asked, his voice tight. "My team secured her," Reed said. "CPS hadn't processed her yet. She was sitting in the lobby of the crisis center. My guys showed up with a court order signed by Judge Holloway. I woke him up personally. She's at my safe house with my wife. She's got her inhaler. She's watching cartoons. She's safe, brother." Logan let out a breath he felt like he'd been holding since the phone call in the desert. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Hope is family. You saved my life in Kandahar. This is the least I can do." Reed checked the rearview mirror. A patrol car was turning the corner, lights flashing. "Here comes the welcome wagon. What's the play? Do we go kinetic?" Logan looked at the precinct. It was a fortress of brick and concrete. "No, not yet. If we storm the place, they'll circle the wagons. The blue wall of silence will go up. We need to dismantle the wall brick by brick. We need to make Knox Reyes radioactive." "I have the footage," Reed said, tapping a laptop mounted on the center console. "Officer York's body cam uploaded to the cloud 3 minutes ago. I have a backdoor into the precinct's server. I'm watching it now." Logan leaned over. On the screen, shaky footage showed the rain, the car, the little girl crying. And then, clear as day, Knox Reyes reaching into his vest pocket, dipping his hand under the seat and pulling out the baggie. "Got him?" Logan growled. "Look at York's face. He saw it." "York is the weak link," Reed analyzed. "We break York. We get the testimony." The patrol car pulled up behind them. 2 officers stepped out, hands on their holsters. They tapped on the SUV window. Logan rolled the window down. The officer, a burly sergeant, shone a flashlight in his face. "License and registration. Step out of the car. You're loitering in a restricted zone." Logan didn't step out. He handed the officer a laminated card. It wasn't a driver's license. It was a Department of Defense identification card with a clearance level that most cops didn't know existed. "Specialist Logan Hendricks," Logan said, calm. "I am conducting a federal inquiry into corruption within this precinct involving the distribution of narcotics by sworn officers. This vehicle is a mobile command post. Unless you want to be named as a co-conspirator in a RICO indictment, I suggest you get back in your car and drive away." The sergeant looked at the ID. He looked at Reed Easton, whom he recognized from the news as the shark who sued the city for police brutality last year and won $3 million. The sergeant paled. He handed the ID back. "I didn't know, sir. We were just checking." "Check elsewhere," Logan said. The officers retreated. They didn't just walk. They practically ran back to their car and peeled away. "Nicely done," Reed smirked. "But Knox won't fold that easy. He's a narcissist. He'll think he can bluff his way out." "Then let's take away his audience," Logan said. He opened the door. "Upload the footage to the news stations. Send it to the mayor. Send it to the chief of police personal email. And send it to every phone in that precinct." "Scorched earth?" Reed asked, his finger hovering over the enter key. "Scorched earth," Logan confirmed. "I'm going in." Logan stepped out into the rain. He didn't run. He walked. He walked with the heavy, predatory gait of a tiger entering a pen of sheep. He checked his watch. It was 2 a.m. Inside the station, the phones were about to start ringing off the hook. Hope was trying to sleep, but the cold metal bench made it impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Trista's terrified face. She heard the click of the handcuffs. Suddenly, the door to the holding area banged open. It wasn't Knox. It was a young officer she recognized, York. He looked frantic. He wasn't wearing his hat. His hair was messy, and he was sweating. He unlocked her cell door with fumbling keys. "Officer?" Hope stood up, wary. "Come with me," York whispered. "Please, just come quietly." "Where are you taking me?" "Away from Knox," York said. "He's losing it. He's talking about transferring you to a holding unit in the basement where the cameras don't work. I can't let him do that." Hope saw the genuine fear in his eyes. She nodded and stepped out. York led her not toward the processing desk, but toward a side exit. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. "Because I saw the video," York said, his voice trembling. "Everyone just saw the video." "What video?" Before he could answer, a roar echoed through the hallway. "York!" Knox Reyes stood at the end of the corridor. He had his baton in his hand. His face was a mask of purple rage. He looked like a man whose world had just collapsed, and he was looking for someone to bury in the rubble. "Get away from her!" Knox screamed, charging down the hall. York stepped in front of Hope, his hand going to his holster but not drawing. "Knox, stop! It's over! The chief just emailed the whole precinct. They have the footage." "I am the law," Knox bellowed, swinging the baton. He struck York in the ribs. The crack of bone was sickening. York crumpled, gasping for air. Knox stepped over him, advancing on Hope. "You think you can ruin me? You think a video changes anything? I'll say you attacked me. I'll say you grabbed my gun." He raised the baton. Hope backed into the wall, nowhere to run. She raised her hands to protect her head. "Knox!" The voice didn't come from the hallway. It came from the shadows behind Knox. Knox spun around. Logan Hendricks was standing there. He hadn't come through the door. He had come through the secure intake bay, bypassing the locks like they were cardboard. He was soaking wet, his tactical suit clinging to his muscles. His eyes were dark voids of absolute violence. "Who the hell are you?" Knox yelled, raising the baton at Logan. Logan didn't speak. He moved. It was a blur. Knox swung the baton with all his strength. Logan didn't dodge. He stepped into the swing. He caught Knox's wrist mid-arc. The sound of the impact was dull, heavy. Knox screamed as Logan applied pressure. The baton clattered to the floor. Logan twisted, spinning Knox around and slamming him face first into the concrete wall. "My name," Logan whispered into Knox's ear, "is the consequences of your actions." Knox tried to reach for his gun. Logan sensed the movement before Knox even made it. He swept Knox's legs, driving him to the ground hard. He pinned Knox with a knee to the spine, immobilizing him completely. "You like planting evidence?" Logan asked, his voice calm, terrifyingly conversational. "You like hurting women?" "Get off me, I'm a cop," Knox wheezed. You're a criminal, Logan corrected. He reached into Knox's belt and pulled out the handcuffs, Knox's own cuffs. He ratcheted them onto Knox's wrists, tight. By now, the hallway was filling with officers. Sergeant Miller and 6 others came running around the corner, guns drawn. "Drop it! Hands in the air!" Miller shouted, aiming at Logan. Logan slowly stood up, raising his hands. He didn't look afraid. He looked bored. He stepped away from Knox, who was writhing on the floor. "Officer down!" Miller yelled. "Secure the suspect! Wait!" The shout came from the other end of the hall. The chief of police, a stern man in his 50s with a tablet in his hand, came storming in. He was followed by Reed Easton. "Lower your weapons," the chief ordered. "Chief? He assaulted an officer," Miller protested. "He restrained a felon," the chief barked. He held up the tablet. "I just watched the body cam footage from Officer York. Knox Reyes planted narcotics on Ms. West. He falsified a report, and..." The chief looked at Knox with pure disgust. "He just assaulted Officer York to cover it up." The officers lowered their guns, looking from their chief to Knox, who was spitting blood on the floor. Reed Easton stepped forward, smoothing his suit jacket. He walked past the guns and the tension, straight to the cell door where Hope was standing, shaking. "Hope," Reed said gently. "I'm Reed, Logan's friend." Hope looked at Reed, then at Logan. Logan was standing still, his eyes locked on hers. He wasn't the scary operator anymore. He was just her big brother. "Logan," she sobbed, her legs giving out. Logan broke protocol. He walked past the chief, past the guns, and caught her before she hit the floor. He wrapped his arms around her, burying his face in her hair. "I got you," he whispered. "I got you. Trista is safe. It's over." He said he'd kill me," Hope cried into his chest. Logan looked down at Knox Reyes, who was being hauled to his feet by his own colleagues. The other officers weren't gentle. They stripped his badge off his chest. They took his gun. The brotherhood was broken. "He won't touch anyone ever again," Logan promised. Knox looked up, his face bruised, his eyes wild. He looked at the chief, then at Logan, and in that moment, he realized the true magnitude of his mistake. He hadn't just harassed a single mom. He had kicked a hornet's nest the size of the Pentagon. "Get him out of my sight," the chief ordered. "Book him. Processing. General population." As they dragged Knox away, screaming obscenities, Logan held his sister tight. But he knew it wasn't truly over. The legal battle was just starting. And for men like Knox, the fall was long, and they would try to drag everyone down with them. Reed walked over, his phone buzzing. "Logan, the press is outside. It's a circus, and the police union rep is already calling. They're going to try to spin this." Logan wiped a tear from Hope's face. His expression hardened again. "Let them spin," Logan said. "We're not done. We're going to sue them for everything they have, and then we're going to make sure every corrupt cop in this city knows the name Hope West." He looked at the chief. "I'm taking my sister home." The chief hesitated, then nodded. "Go. We'll clean this up." Logan guided Hope toward the exit, his arm around her shoulders like a shield of iron. They walked out into the night, but the rain had stopped. The morning sun over Seattle did not bring warmth. It brought scrutiny. 3 days had passed since the incident at the 12th precinct, and the city was a powder keg waiting for a spark. Knox Reyes was not in a cell. He was sitting in a plush leather chair in the office of Arthur Vane, the most expensive defense attorney the police union could buy. Knox was out on bail, posted within 2 hours of his booking, a fact that had set the local news cycle on fire. "They have the video, Arthur," Knox said, pacing the room. His arrogance was cracked, held together by a thin veneer of denial. "But videos can be contextualized. We can say I saw a weapon. We can say the angle was bad." Arthur Vane didn't look up from his file. He was a shark in a three-piece suit, a man who had made a career out of getting bad cops back on the street. The video is damaging, Knox, but it's not the video that worries me. It's the brother. He's a grunt, Knox scoffed, pouring himself a drink from Vane's crystal decanter. He's playing soldier. He is not a grunt, Vane corrected sharply. Reed Easton is representing Hope West. Do you know who Reed Easton is? He's the man who bankrupts municipalities. And Logan Hendricks? I made some calls to D.C. My contacts didn't just hang up. They told me to burn my phone. These people are not playing a game, Knox. They are waging a war. So fight back. Knox slammed the glass down. Dig up dirt on the nurse. She's a single mom in the projects. She has to have skeletons, unpaid bills, ex-boyfriends, something. We're trying, Vane sighed. But the public sentiment is shifting. The mayor is talking about an independent review board. You are becoming a liability, Knox. I am the 12th precinct, Knox shouted. If I go down, I take half the squad with me. I know where the bodies are buried, Arthur. You tell the union that. They protect me or I burn the house down. Arthur Vane looked at Knox with cold, reptilian eyes. Be very careful, officer. Threats work both ways. Meanwhile, in a secure safe house overlooking the Puget Sound, the atmosphere was vastly different. It was quiet, serene, but underlined with a military-grade tension. Hope West sat on the balcony, wrapped in a cashmere blanket, watching the ferries cut through the gray water. Trista was inside, playing chess with Logan. The little girl's laughter, clear and wheeze-free, was the only sound that mattered to Hope. Reed Easton stepped out onto the balcony, 2 tablets in hand. How are you holding up? I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, Hope said, not looking away from the water. Knox is out on bail. I saw it on the news. How is that justice, Reed? Bail is a procedural right, unfortunately, Reed said, sitting beside her. But it's also a trap. Knox is arrogant. He thinks being out means he's winning. It just means he has more rope to hang himself. They're dragging my name through the mud, Hope whispered. I saw the blogs. They're saying I'm an unfit mother because I work night shifts. They're saying I have questionable associates because my brother is special ops. Let them talk, Reed said firmly. We filed the civil suit this morning. $50 million, punitive damages, civil rights violations, emotional distress, and we named the city, the police department, and Knox Reyes personally. Money won't fix Trista's nightmares, Hope said. No, Logan's voice came from the doorway. He stepped out, closing the glass door behind him so Trista wouldn't hear. Money is just the tool. The fix is what happens next week. The grand jury? Hope asked. Better, Logan said, his eyes scanning the perimeter of the property. We found the ghost. Hope looked confused. Ghost? Officer Kenneth York, Logan explained. He disappeared after Knox assaulted him. The union tried to stash him in a safe house for his protection, they said. Really, they were hiding him to keep him from testifying. They were going to pressure him to recant, maybe threaten his pension or his family. So he's gone? Hope's heart sank. Without York's testimony, it was just her word against a veteran cop's. Logan smiled, a rare predatory expression. I told you, Hope. I specialize in extraction. We didn't just find him. We liberated him. The courtroom was a pressure cooker. The air conditioning was fighting a losing battle against the body heat of the packed gallery. Reporters, activists, police supporters, and curious citizens were crammed shoulder to shoulder. Knox Reyes sat at the defense table, dressed in a suit that cost more than Hope's car. He looked confident, whispering to Arthur Vane, occasionally shooting glares at the prosecution's table. Hope sat with Reed. She wore her Sunday best, a simple navy dress. She refused to look at Knox. Behind her, in the first row, sat Logan. He was wearing a suit, but he still looked like a weapon in a scabbard. He sat perfectly still, his gaze fixed on the back of Knox's neck. The district attorney, a woman named Sarah Jenkins, who was up for re-election and smelled blood in the water, stood up. The people call Officer Kenneth York to the stand. A murmur went through the crowd. The double doors at the back opened. Knox turned, expecting to see a broken man, a rookie cowed by the union. Instead, Kenneth York walked in with his head high. He was flanked by two large men in suits, Reed's private security. York walked past the gallery, past the glaring eyes of his former colleagues in the back row, and took the stand. "State your name and occupation," Jenkins asked. "Kenneth York, former police officer, 12th Precinct." "Former?" Jenkins asked. "I resigned this morning," York said, his voice steady. "I cannot wear a badge that Knox Ray is tarnished." Arthur Vane jumped up. "Objection! Argumentative!" "Sustained. Just the facts, Mr. York," the judge warned. "Mr. York," Jenkins continued, "walk us through the night of November 14th. York took a deep breath. He looked at Hope. "We were on patrol. Officer Reyes was agitated. He said he was bored. He said he wanted to hunt." The jury scribbled furiously. "When we pulled over Ms. West, was there probable cause?" "No," York said clearly. "She was driving normally. She hit a pothole. Her taillight flickered. That was it." "And the smell of marijuana?" "There was no smell. It was raining. Her windows were up until we approached. The car smelled like cleaning supplies and bubble gum." "Tell us about the search." York gripped the railing of the witness stand. "I checked the car. It was clean. I told Officer Reyes it was clean. He pushed me aside. I saw him reach into his tactical vest. I saw him remove a baggie of white powder. I saw him place it under the passenger seat." "Liar!" Knox shouted, jumping to his feet. "You traitorous little rat!" "Sit down, Mr. Reyes," the judge bellowed, banging the gavel. "One more outburst and I will hold you in contempt." Knox sank back down, his face crimson. Arthur Vane looked like he wanted to vanish. "Officer York," Jenkins asked, "why didn't you stop him?" York looked down, shame coloring his cheeks. "Because I was a rookie, and Knox Reyes was a god in that precinct. He told me that if I spoke up, he'd ruin me. He said—" York looked directly at Knox. "He said the blue wall would crush me. And what changed your mind?" "I saw the little girl," York whispered. "Trista. I saw her face pressed against the glass, and then her uncle called." "No further questions," Jenkins said. Arthur Vane stood up for cross-examination. He tried to rattle York. He brought up York's academy records, his brother's debts, his hesitation. But York was bulletproof. He had already lost his career. He had nothing left to lose but the truth. Then came the defense. Arthur Vane called Knox Reyes to the stand. It was a Hail Mary pass. He hoped Knox's charisma would sway the jury. It was a fatal error. Knox answered Vane's question smoothly. He played the hero cop. The streets are dangerous. He has to make split-second decisions. He truly believed he smelled drugs. Then, it was Reed Easton's turn. Because this was a joint criminal and civil proceeding, a rare occurrence expedited by the magnitude of the scandal, Reed was allowed to cross-examine for the civil liability portion. Reed walked to the podium. He didn't bring notes. He just stared at Knox for a long, uncomfortable minute. "Mr. Reyes," Reed began softly, "you claimed you felt threatened by Ms. West, a 5'4" nurse in scrubs." "She was erratic," Knox said defensively. "You don't know what people are capable of." "I know exactly what people are capable of," Reed said, tapping his glass eye. "But let's talk about finances. On a police salary of $85,000 a year, how did you afford a $300,000 boat and a vacation home in Aspen?" I make good investments," Knox stammered. "Investments," Reed repeated. He signaled to the bailiff. "Exhibit G, please." The screen in the courtroom lit up. It wasn't the body cam footage. It was a bank ledger. "This is a forensic accounting of your offshore accounts, Mr. Reyes," Reed said, his voice hardening. "Obtained via federal subpoena this morning. It shows regular deposits from known associates of the street gangs you were supposed to be arresting. You weren't—" hunting drug dealers, were you? You were eliminating the competition for your partners. The courtroom gasped. The judge's eyes went wide. Objection! Vane screamed. Relevance! This is a simple possession case. It goes to character and motive, Your Honor, Reed argued. He planted drugs on Ms. West because he needed an arrest to cover his quota while he was moving product for the cartel. That's a lie, Knox screamed. You can't prove that. I don't have to, Reed smiled. Because the FBI is waiting in the hallway, but right now we are talking about Hope West. You destroyed her life because you were having a bad night. You laughed about it. You told her she was nobody. Reed leaned in close, his voice dropping to a terrifying whisper. Look at the back row, Knox. Look at the man sitting behind her. You called him a nobody, too. Tell the jury, Knox. Do you feel like the law now? Knox looked at Logan. Logan gave him a small two-finger salute. Knox broke. I did my job, Knox shrieked, spit flying. People like her. They're all guilty of something. If it wasn't the drugs, it was something else. I keep this city clean. I am the line. You need me. The silence that followed was deafening. Knox realized what he had said. He had admitted to targeting her based on bias. He had admitted to the God complex. No further questions, Reed said, turning his back on him. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman, a middle-aged schoolteacher, didn't look at Knox. She looked at Hope. In the matter of the people versus Knox Reyes, on the count of manufacturing evidence, we find the defendant guilty. On the count of false imprisonment, guilty. On the count of assault on a police officer, guilty. On the count of civil rights violations, guilty. The word rang out like a bell tolling. Guilty, guilty, guilty. The judge looked at Knox. Mr. Reyes, due to the severity of these crimes and the betrayal of public trust, I am revoking your bail immediately. Sentencing is set for Tuesday, but be advised, the federal indictments regarding the financial crimes will likely add decades to whatever I give you. Remand the defendant. The bailiffs moved in. This time they didn't treat him like a brother. They spun him around. They cuffed his hands behind his back. The metal clicked. The same sound Hope had heard that night in the rain. Arthur, do something, Knox pleaded, looking at his lawyer. Arthur Vane was already packing his briefcase. I can't help you, Knox. The check bounced. The union cut you loose. As they marched Knox out of the side door, he locked eyes with Hope. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked pitying. I told you, she mouthed. Big mistake. Knox was led into the holding cell, the same one he had put Hope in. But he didn't stay there. He was transferred to the county jail. The intake process was brutal. They took his tailored suit. They gave him an orange jumpsuit that smelled of mildew. They took his shoes. They shaved his head for hygiene. Then came the walk. The walk to general population. The guard, an older man who had known Knox for years, stopped at the gate of cell block D. I can't go in there, Knox whispered, panic seizing his chest. I put half these guys away. They'll kill me. The guard shrugged. Protective custody is full, Knox, and besides, the paperwork says you're just a drug dealer. You'll fit right in. The gate buzzed open. Knox walked into the block. The noise stopped. Hundreds of eyes turned to him, eyes filled with hate, eyes that recognized the man who had planted evidence on them, who had beaten them, who had laughed at them. Knox backed up against the gate, but it had already clicked shut. Karma hadn't just hit back, it had swallowed him whole. 6 months later. The sun was shining on Seattle, a rare, beautiful day. Hope walked out of the escrow office, keys in her hand. She wasn't driving the Honda Civic anymore. She walked toward a safe, reliable Volvo SUV. Reed had secured a settlement of $12 million from the city. The mayor had resigned in disgrace. The 12th precinct was under federal oversight, and a new captain, Kenneth York, reinstated and promoted, was cleaning house. Hope drove to a quiet suburban street. She pulled into the driveway of a beautiful two-story house with a big backyard. Trista ran out the front door, her lungs strong, her laughter bright. She was chasing a golden retriever puppy. "Mama, look! He found a stick!" Hope picked her daughter up, spinning her around. The weight of that rainy night was gone, replaced by the lightness of freedom. Logan stood on the porch, leaning against the railing. He watched them, a coffee cup in his hand. He looked tired, but the darkness in his eyes had receded a little. "You leaving?" Hope asked, walking up the steps. "Mission complete," Logan smiled. "Got a call. Something in Eastern Europe needs fixing." "You could stay," Hope said, touching his arm. "You don't have to be a ghost, Logan." "Someone has to scare the monsters away," Logan said, kissing her forehead. "But I'm always one call away. Code Black, remember?" "I remember," Hope smiled. Logan walked to his car, threw his bag in the back, and drove away. Hope watched him go, then turned back to her daughter and their new home. She was safe. She was vindicated. And she knew, deep in her bones, that justice wasn't just a word. It was something you fought for, and sometimes it was something that fought for you. Knox Reyes thought his badge made him a god. He thought a single mother was easy prey. He learned the hard way that when you push the innocent too far, you don't just break them. You wake up the lions that protect them. Hope West didn't just survive, she triumphed. And Knox? He's serving 25 to life, realizing that in the end, the truth is the only thing that can't be arrested. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe. We post new stories of karma, justice, and survival every single week. What would you do if you were in Hope's shoes? Would you have forgiven York? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss a beat.